Hi class. Today we're going to continue to on where we left off yesterday, studying about the African slave trade in the Americas. Again, like I said, this is a extremely painful subject. It's painful because I have family that are descended from slaves, family that I will never know. I've heard stories all my life from my family members. My parents told me stories, their parents told them, my grandparents told their stories to their grandchildren, their grandparents told stories, and on and on and on. Seemed like with all these people telling stories, we would have known more than we know now, but we don't know a lot. Okay? Today, you're going to learn a little more than the average person generally knows about African slave trade, and the stories you're going to hear are told in the form of what they call narratives. They're stories told by one person, usually to someone else, who records it. Now, these stories come from people who are actually captured slaves, captured Africans who became slaves, and lived long enough to tell someone what it was like to have that experience. We're going to be working from a book called To Be a Slave by Julius Lester, all right? And in it is a series of narratives that describes the experience of slavery. Everyone should have this copy of the book. It doesn't necessarily have to have this cover, but our school librarian has given a copy to each of you, all right? What I'm going to do is ask you to read from the prologue together with me. I'm going to read a passage on page 18. Okay? It's a passage that has to do with a relative of the person who's giving the narrative, who describes what it was like to be taken into slavery from her life in Africa. I want you to read along silently while I read out loud to the whole group, and then we're going to spend time together discussing it and trying to understand fully what it means based on the words that we read here. All right, let's get started with this. Granny Judith said that in Africa they had very few pretty things, and that they had no red colors in cloth. In fact, they had no cloth at all. Some strangers with pale faces come one day and dropped a small piece of red flannel down on the ground. All the black folks grabbed for it. Then a larger piece was dropped a little further on, until the river was reached. Then a large piece was dropped in the river and on the other side. I bet you they all tried to go get it. They led on, each one trying to get a piece as it was dropped. Finally, when the ship was reached, they dropped large pieces on the plank and up the ship until they got as many blacks on board as they wanted. Then the gate was chained up and they could not get back. That is the way Granny Judith say they got her to America. Oh my gosh. That is the most unusual, strangest way I've ever heard. I've never heard a story like that someone was taken into slavery by that method. I mean, it is a little bit, let's say, clever, for the want of another word. You know, kind of like devious, more to me. You know, devious meaning something you think it's something really bad to do, but you're very clever at doing it. Very devious. Well, anyway, what I want you to do is, because you've heard those words, you've read those words, you still need to really fully understand what it means to have been captured as a slave. In order for you to do that, I have a graphic organizer. I showed it to you all. Everybody should have this graphic organizer. And you're going to work with your group. You're going to turn and talk. Your group is going to work together. And you are going to complete the graphic organizer trying to make meaning about what you've read. Now, I'm going to go over a little bit with you so that you can understand how it should be used. All right, let's go over the first section together. And then you guys are going to do it as a group by yourselves. Okay, here we go. It says Richard Jones is the narrative, or narrator, I should say. And the question I want you to understand right here is, why do you think Africans followed the red cloth all the way onto the slave ship? Something to think about, right? Why? Well, you have to give some kind of uh, evidence or show events that can back up your answer, whatever that answer might be. My answer was they wanted the cloth because it was something new and rare to them. Okay? My evidence of that is in the passage. She says that they didn't have cloth at all, they didn't have red. So to me, if you don't have something like that, you see something like that, it's something new, you might be excited and you might want to have it. Okay? The next question or section talks about what lessons you have been learned, what lesson was learned. And to me, the lesson that I would learn from all of this experience of this red cloth and them being put on that ship is sometimes you can fall into a trap if you don't look and see where you're going. Okay, so you got to look where you're going, or else you might fall into a trap. You always got to keep looking where you're going. And I don't mean that just in a figurative sense. I mean it literally and figuratively. You got to look where you're going, meaning think about what's going on. Why are you marching there? Why you keep going? Why are you following this red cloth? Okay? The next session talks about what you would do. Now, if you were in that category, what would you do? There you are living your life. What would you do? You have to think about what you would do. I said that I would question why it was happening and not just accept that it is. Now, I mean, why are they putting this red cloth down? What does that mean? What's that about? And then the further I got away from my home, I'd be questioning it even further. I wouldn't be so trusting. And I think for me, that was my impression of these people. They were very trusting. They had not seen this before. So it was new. So they had no reason to assume that this was going to be a problem. Okay? I want you to work together with your group. Use the graphic organizer to help you. Okay? It's to help you. It's a tool to help you. You to read the prologue together as a group. Talk about it as you read. Talk out loud to each other. Try to figure out what's going on. And then the next two questions, I want you to answer those three sections for those next two questions. Once you have done that, you've talked about it, you figured out in your mind what's going on, then I want you to work together to produce one paragraph for your group. One paragraph that discusses why this happened, okay? Okay, why did the traders use this way to try to get people? Why did the people get got, I should say. I don't like to say it like that. It sounds like I don't know what I'm saying. But why were these people captured using this method? That's what I want to know. And make sure your paragraph includes an introduction, your evidence, okay, and a conclusion of some sorts, right? Don't quote a lot. One is okay. Not more than one. One. And make sure you use your own words for everything else. This is what I want you. I'll come around. I'll help people who need to be helped, even though I think you're all very capable. And let's see if we can get this job done, because I think that you really, really, really are going to learn a lot from what you read from these narratives. All right? Everybody ready? Good. Let's begin.